Brent Money, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. So first, let me have your reaction to the results of the special election runoff. It was a very close race. You lost by only 111 votes.
Yeah, and I think obviously a little disappointed in the outcome. We felt like we ran a solid race, and in the end, it looks like about 11% of the electorate was Democrat, and which amounted to probably close to 1,500 votes. We won't know until we get the count from yesterday, but I think coming up in a Republican primary where only Republican voters are voting, we're going to do a lot better.
And I was going to ask you because obviously, as you mentioned, this was not a primary. This was a special election where anybody can vote, obviously, and even the primaries are open, but most people vote in their party. So what do you think really what happened? Because you had very solid backing from Governor Abbott, you had Senator Cruz, you had AG Ken Paxton. So you had a lot of endorsements there from powerful Republicans in the state. So what do you think happened?
Sure. There's, I think we got a lot of support from strong conservatives in our district. And what happened is, much like the Nikki Haley strategy up in I'm sorry, New Hampshire and South Carolina, it's to Ms. Dutton mobilize the Democrats to come out for her. There's a very stark contrast between the type of Republican that we each are. And so when Democrats look at Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton, it kind of sends them running the other direction.
So what are your differences? I mean, what are your priorities if you are elected in March?
Yeah, well, my priorities are the same priorities as the Republican Party of Texas: secure the border, protect our elections, lower property taxes, defend and empower families. And in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, it appears that Ms. Dutton's priorities are, fake news attacks that I'm trying to take out, teacher retirement, which is absurd. My mom is in the teacher retirement system. Um, she just came out with a bunch of outlandish attacks that are not related to any policy differences. So I've tried to stick with policy. I've tried to stick with being the true conservative in the race. And I think that ultimately, when we have only Republican voters voting, we're going to come out victorious.
So how do you plan to make sure, your supporters come out? How are you going to turn this around for March?
Well, March is going to be a completely different thing. Instead of a special election runoff in late January, we're going to have President Donald Trump on the ballot. We're going to have other local elections on the ballot that will drive turnout. And so instead of getting 13,000, we'll probably have 3 times that many people vote in March. So it's really a whole new race.
And how are you going to be getting out the vote?
Um, Talking to as many people as we possibly can. I've got a great team of volunteers as well. They'll be talking to their friends and family, trying to get them out to vote. We'll be engaging people at debates, at candidate forums, meet and greets, door to door, telephone, mailing. I mean, it's the whole. We're going to do it all.
You talked about it a little before, and I'm just wondering for Republicans who may just be hearing about this race for the first time in your districts, in your district, what do you say to them? Why should they vote for you over Jill Dutton?
I think voters in House District 2, Republican voters in House District 2, are concerned with the direction of our country, and they're concerned with the direction of our state. And they look at things like Texas Republicans have been in power for 20 years, and we still give Democrats chairmanships on committees. I'm against that. Jill Dutton is for it. They saw the sham impeachment of Ken Paxton, which I opposed, that Jill Dutton favored. We, I think that if we really want to have a conservative red Texas, then we need to elect conservative red representatives. And so Jill Dutton seems to want to kind of get along with the Austin establishment. Her campaign was she spent over $1 million at this point, and most of that coming from Austin lobbyists, whereas most of my money has come from within the district, and at only about 350,000, I think. And so we've been outspent 3-1. And I think that you just look at where the support's coming from. My support is primarily grassroots conservatives, and hers is primarily Austin establishment lobby.
I wanted to ask you because this issue of Democratic chairs in the Texas House has obviously come up before in a variety of races. And when I've talked to other Republicans, conservatives who've been in the House before, and I've asked them about this, they still like the idea of having some Democratic chairs. They say they don't want to turn Austin, the Texas legislature, into Congress. What do you say to that?
I think that's a great example of how Austin is out of line with the rest of Texas, because when you talk with voters, they have absolutely no idea why Republicans would put Democrats in power, and they know that Democrats would never allow Republicans to be in power. I run my own business. I have about 40 something employees. I would never put someone in charge of a department in my business that didn't share my values and didn't want to accomplish the same purposes that I do. It makes no sense. And so Republicans and Democrats are different. That's okay. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to work with them where we can, but we cannot be putting Democrats in charge of ushering through Republican priorities. It's always going to get blocked, and that's what happens.
Do you think there was some negative publicity surrounding the Defend Texas Liberty PAC, which supported you? Do you think the negative publicity about the person who used to run it, former Representative Jonathan Stickland, and the fact that he hosted a known white supremacist in his office, do you think that controversy hurt you in this race?
I'm not sure how much it hurt me. I think it's extremely frustrating to have that kind of gutter politics invade what is a pretty nice rural conservative district where I've been a strong Christian church going person my whole life who clearly loves people of all races and cultures and differences, and to be called a neo-Nazi because one person that is part of a group that supported me had a random meeting with a person who has said incendiary things. It's a terrible game of guilt by association that I think that Republicans should be better than that. It's the kind of politics that we should be better than that. The folks at Defend Texas Liberty are Christian conservatives who are concerned with our state, who have a set of ideals that I strongly agree with, and frankly, that most of the state of Texas agrees with. And I think the way that they've been slandered, not just in this, but in the past, is indicative of how broken Austin is and how out of step Austin is with the rest of the state of Texas. And one last thing I would say is if anybody is out there watching and you see a candidate in a race in your area called a neo-Nazi, you should sprint to the polls to vote for that person because that's kind of Austin code for someone who really believes Christian values. And so we should look at that for what it is.
If you're elected, not only in the primary, it's obviously a safe Republican seat. So the primary will likely settle this race. If that happens and you are elected, would you support Dade Phelan as Speaker of the House if he is reelected?
Well, Dade Phelan is not going to get reelected. He's way behind in his home district. One of his opponents, David Covey, just got endorsed by President Donald Trump. He's going to lose that race, and I think a lot of other establishment cronies that he has are going to lose across the state of Texas. But if I were to win and he were to still be there, then I would be looking hard for a Republican who actually believes in the Republican legislative priorities and who is willing to eliminate the practice of appointing chairmanships to people who fundamentally disagree with us. So that's another big difference between me and Dave Phelan is Jill Dutton thinks that the way the House operates is just fine, and I think we need some real changes.
Have you sought the endorsement of former President Trump?
No, I have not.
All right. Anything else that voters should know about you?
Um, I don't think so. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to come on here and talk.
Thank you, Brent Money. We really appreciate it.
All
Thank
right,
you so
thank
much.
you.